So Matt, I knew you were famous, but here I am watching the NVIDIA press conference showing off all their latest technology, and there you are, front and center screen, getting your face RTX smashed on. It was pretty funny, actually.
Smashed on?
Yeah, well, it was an RTX on demonstration. Yeah. And there you are getting obliterated in the finals.
Yeah.
And it says, "You killed Matimio," center screen. I was like, "Hey, it's Matt.
It's me." So they contacted me and they said, "Hey, we would like to put you in our." They didn't actually, but we want to put you in. And it's like, sweet. How so? Well, we want you to get dunked on, and well, there we are.
Wait, did they contact you?
No, they did not contact me. No.
I figured that was from one of those play sessions that we did. They must have recorded
probably.
it. I was like, I might have been the guy next to you who is like about to die next or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, that's pretty cool, man. One of the biggest companies on the planet. They're showing off all their latest tech.
My name's literally in their presentation now. Look at that.
You're everywhere, dude. It's just like... You go in places, man.
Yeah, so everyone thinks like, oh, you need to be like the top fragger, right? But sometimes it's okay to get dunked on because then your name pops up in front of potentially millions of people. So look at that. There you go.
Exactly. That's why I just stream snipe, but I always die to, like the big streamers. I'm like, it's Dr. Disrespect. Let me die in front of him.
Who's this LevelCap that keeps showing up and why does he suck so much?
Just it's advertising, man. Free advertising.
Yeah, free advertisement, yeah.
You had a good week, man?
It was okay. Pretty chill. Not really a lot of new games to play, but, pretty chill.
It's January, man. I mean, they're not
starts to kick up in February, and there's going to be some more stuff this month, but the last couple of, because it was the holidays, and it's not like new games are going to launch during the holidays, like right on the holidays at least.
Yeah. Well, you have an unusual appetite for games anyway. You're like,
I do.
You play like 8-hour plus days of gaming, and then you're like, well, I played that entire game, and other people are like, yeah, I'm still working on my backlog from like 2022, bro.
Yeah. No, I understand.
Yeah.
The life of a streamer.
Yeah. Most people are fine. You're like, there's no new games,
There's nothing to play anymore.
Sometimes you got to get creative. I was checking out a Zelda Fan Remaster that's been in the works for like 8 years. It's currently on Unreal Engine 5, which means it started on maybe, I don't know what engine it started on.
It must have been on 4.
4 or 3, who knows? I don't know. But it looks incredible. It's one dude making this remaster, and it looks really impressive. It looks like if Nintendo picked up this is Zelda Ocarina of Time from the Nintendo 64.
Okay.
If they picked up that project and they're like, we're going to re-release our great masterpiece, it probably wouldn't look too dissimilar from what this guy has done.
Really?
It's quite impressive.
So the one thing I'm worried about is whoever's doing this, now that people know about it, what's going to happen with Nintendo, because Nintendo is very, very protective of their property.
Literally the worst company to start getting into the legally gray zone with. I mean, Nintendo and Disney, two companies notorious, like you don't mess around with their IPs.
You do not. So
I know.
It would suck to spend 8 years. You said 8 years?
Yeah. On it. I mean, I don't think
it's get it shut down.
That's sort of his thing, is he's doing HD remasters of classic games in like the Unreal Engine and stuff. And it's neat to see his work. He's pretty good at it, but this one is definitely like his long-term project. And I mean, if you've ever played Zelda 64, it's a big game. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of dungeons, and if you play it from start to finish, it'll take you a while to get through it. And this dude's I
see you made a video on it. It does look pretty good. It doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
It looks like a remaster. It doesn't look like a remake, but
yeah. I think it makes sense to a degree because the polys are so low in N64 games where you're like, I'm in a room. There's literally 4 walls in the room and no other geometric detail sometimes. So remastering that.
There's only so much you could do.
Yeah,
you'd have to use a lot of inspiration. You'd have to take a lot of creative freedom to enhance those worlds if you wanted to stay true to the actual game, then that's kind of deviating from it. So I get it.
Yeah, I hope this guy's at least got a great job in the game industry right now, because like he's basically solo doing what would otherwise be like an entire dev team needed, or a small dev team anyway. But yeah, to remaster an old game like this, it's no small feat by any means. Yeah, I like it. What have you been playing with your lack of newness?
I'm playing a lot of Tarkov, and by Tarkov I mean I'm getting dunked on, just kicked in the face repeatedly. I played last night, and my little adventures, first 2 hours, getting shot in the face within the first like 5 minutes of the match. Every single, I killed a scav, started the round, spawned next to a scav, basically, shoot him, and then I went to loot, bam, right in the head as soon as I start looting. Like, oh, cool, great, back to my favorite loading screen again. That really is the biggest problem with Tarkov, is their loading screens. Is the actual stash is basically a loading screen. Yeah, they have improved things with the loadout system, so you can like click and like basically will buy everything for you, and then it will just make your loadout, which is awesome, and that really streamlines it. But man, waiting 5 minutes to get into a game, on top of the how long it took you to like get your loadout set up, and then just to die within the first 2 minutes sucks.
Yeah, it's just, I don't think Tarkov is ever going to be not janky. It's just plagued by all this janky stuff where the devs are like, we're going to simulate the most realistic bullet physics ever, and somebody's like, can we load into matches faster? And they're like, we don't care about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the thing is like, it's not even because everyone's just, because you'll have to wait for players a lot of the times. So it could be Timmy has just a really terrible PC and you have to wait on them. But even when you're just trying to like load back into the main menu after a round, it can take like a minute. So it's not just SSDs and normal hard drives that's slowing it down. There's just something with the engine, or there's something with how they've created this game where it just chunks.
Yeah, isn't one of their big updates coming up like a big visual overhaul?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are looking forward to. And I will say, even though I'm being a little negative right now, I do think that this is probably the best state that Tarkov has been in. It's just that Tarkov has always been super jank, and so it's just way better than it has been, but it's still on a foundation of jank.
Everyone seems to be kind of jumping back onto the Tarkov bandwagon with this wipe and enjoying it a lot more. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Because it's fun. It's lo and behold, if you make actually shooting the weapons enjoyable, it's almost as if it becomes enjoyable.
Yeah.
What a crazy concept.
That was like that transition with Battlefield 1 when it first launched. The weapons were like infuriatingly annoying to try and shoot people with because the bloom was crazy, and then
did they patch that?
Yeah, they fixed it by the end of the game's life cycle. I mean, some guns still retain some bloom, but it was more by intention. They were supposed to be a little bit more novice style weapons.
Okay, I didn't know they actually changed it. I thought it was just the same bloom as it was during launch.
They fixed it quite a bit.
It was really bad at launch.
Yeah, really, really bad. And then as they patched it up, you're like, oh man, like this is it became one of my favorite Battlefield games. And I was like, it just really was a weapon mechanics. It's fantastic. I know Broken Machine plays it quite a bit on stream. And you know, he only streams Battlefield games, and I see him streaming BF1 a lot. I'm like, yep, BF1's still solid.
Atmospherically, it's a fantastic game. So
yeah. I always liked all the vehicles and stuff, man. Taking down those airships, just watching them like crash and burn. Oh, such a cinematic game.
But yeah, so the gunplay is a lot better. I mean, we talked about this last time, so I don't want to go like too in deep, but yeah, it's just like they're really hitting it. They're hitting their stride. They're taking a step forward, and I like what they're doing with Tarkov. It finally feels like they're not just regressing for the sake of we're trying to make this harder for the sake of making it harder.
Yeah. You know what's coming back around to the NVIDIA stream that you were front and center stage of?
Oh, yes, of course.
One of their cool technologies that they showed off is actually kind of related to the Zelda remake too. It's called an RTX Remix, and it's like this technology that I guess they can pipe into a game engine, and a game developer can take... They're showing it off with like one of the old Elder Scrolls games, like maybe Elder Scrolls 3 or something like that. Okay. And they're basically piping in this NVIDIA it's like AI upscaling and asset upscaling, and it was just taking like all these old Elder Scroll 3 levels and bumping them up to like modern visual. No, I wouldn't say modern visual quality, but very good visual quality, where like it replaces all the lighting, it upscales all the textures to be HD and have all the bump mapping and normal mapping that they wouldn't have had before. Yeah. And it's basically like the remaster package. You plug it into your game and it just remasters your old game, your old low poly game. Yeah, I was watching it and I just couldn't quite figure it out. I was like, how are they doing this? This seems incredible. But
yeah, how is it able to decipher like what the original creative vision was for the lighting and everything? That's impressive if they're able to, if it's reliable and it's not just, they're picking certain cases where it works well.
The beta's opening up soon. So far, all we've seen of it, the public has seen of it, is the videos they've released. Right. So of course it looks great in the videos. They don't post when it screws up and doesn't make it look good. Yeah. They're like, was that supposed to be a fish man talking to me over there, or was that? And the AI thought it was a fish. We don't know, but it is neat that they're going this direction, and I think a lot of other game developers are. Or not game developers, but rather the engine developers are looking into this same sort of technology, because right now within the art world, the two main AI techniques being used would be like text to image, where you just tell it what you want and then it gives you a cool image, and then AI upscaling, which is you give it an image of something that looks kind of cool, or like an old photo that's maybe a little out of focus, or a low res texture, and it can upscale it to this incredible precision. It's really impressive. The AI upscaling is, in my opinion, just as cool as the full-on image generation. So I think they're pumping a lot of that tech into just textures and stuff. So they're like, here's my old ancient Nintendo 64 game with very, very, very fuzzy low-res textures, and they give it to the AI upscaler, and it's like,
just
boom.
Upscales it.
Yeah, here's like grass and fine detail, and you're like, whoa, okay, that's pretty cool.
That is neat. Yeah. AI is going to be changing our lives in more ways than not, because I just recently saw a video where there's apparently a influencer on, like, an influencer,
sure,
like a Instagram model, and she's gorgeous.
She's not real.
She's beautiful, and she's not real. She's all AI, and she looks like a person. She doesn't like. It's so hard to tell, because a lot of women and men too, they use filters, and so there's always like that kind of like weird. A lot of pictures, you're like, is that really what you look like? Why is everything so fuzzy at times? Because there's like, you know what I mean. The filters can make it look a little weird. But yeah, the AI is getting to the point now where they basically are going to be replacing Instagram models, which is just...
It's weird. It's weird.
It's weird.
Just for people watching now, too, we have filters on. If you actually saw what we looked like, oh boy, your screens would melt.
I decided to go for the receding hairline filter.
Yeah. Well, you should see his hairline, and no, you should see it it's like full on Captain Picard.
Just all the way back. Yeah, it's gone. There's nothing. I'm just fully bald.
Yeah. I'm excited for what some of this AI stuff's going to bring to gaming. Of course, it's always that slippery slope and crazy stuff happening. But did you see that Midjourney is getting, I can't remember if they're in a full-on lawsuit or if it's like the beginning of a class action lawsuit, but basically a document leaked, somebody leaked it, that was the developers behind Midjourney, which is an AI image generation software. It's one of the most popular ones right now.
It's very powerful.
Extremely powerful, extremely cool. I've used it quite a bit just because it's fun to play with. You can do it on your phone because it integrates to Discord. It's pretty neat. But a document or an internal conversation leaked that disclosed the artist's artwork, who they were pulling all of their references from. And it was like it was something like 1,600 different well-known artists or something like that online, and they were using all of their material
just straight
to generate their image profiles. So I believe they had denied that this was specifically their technique, or like that they had used a specific pool of artists or something like. I don't know the specifics of what they had said before this, but it's basically leading to a lot of legal issues now, because it's just one of those weird things where you're like, okay, if you steal from that guy can sue you. But what if you steal from 1,600 people, but only this tiny amount? Yeah. Now what happens? I think we've already opened Pandora's box to a certain degree, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with this legal case, if it'll instigate some sort of regulation on AI image generation, or if they'll just buy the artwork and use that to make their image generators.
That's kind of where I see it going, is that they have to pay artists to be like, either give them like a royalty or something, where if they're using their images, they have to pay the artists a certain amount, be like, hey, we're coming to you specifically, we'd like to use your art style. And then the artist has to be like, okay, yeah. But how many artists will actually do that? How are you going to officially track it? Because this is all proprietary algorithm technology that they don't want you to see behind closed doors. So what's stopping them from just throwing your portfolio in and mixing it up with the other thousands of portfolios? And you never really knowing. You might assume, because there's some artists who can really pick out their own style very quickly, but you never know.
Yeah, it sucks. There's still a very good reason to hire concept artists. They're absolutely needed. Still, AI hasn't replaced them. You can't get very specific stuff from AI unless you're like a master with programming or setting up the prompts correctly. But it's just it's entering this. AI cannot create. I don't want to say unique artwork, but it can't come up with new ideas unless those ideas are combinations of things that already exist. So a concept artist might be able to come up with a cool new idea. Obviously, their ideas come from somewhere too, but they might be pulling some weird idea they read about in a book when they were a kid versus just a giant pool of images on the internet. So AI is just pulling from that, and it struggles to create new things, and that's why we're always going to need concept artists to some degree. But it is probably replacing a lot of the lesser ones as well. Yeah.
So it's the Wild West right now. It's they're gonna probably need regulation to reel them in, but who knows? Like you said, I think Pandora's box may be opened.
Yeah. And speaking of opening Pandora's box, are you ready to enter the world of augmented reality at the low price? The low price of $3,500.
Bro, I'm in.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to
buy a car with that? But
it's only $3,500. It's Apple technology, which means it's not going to interface with anything else.
Now, is this the one they showed off like a while back? Or
yeah, it's coming out February 2nd.
Oh, my favorite month.
February 8th, something. I don't know. Early February, I believe.
Cool.
Yeah, are you going to get one and do some AR streams? You're not going to do. All the other streamers are doing
$3,500 so I can.
You'll make it back, okay?
I don't even have an Apple. I literally don't own an Apple product. The only Apple product I have is Apple TV.
Yeah, I need to research it more because I don't know what it interfaces with. There was speculation, or somebody suggested that it wouldn't run all the like VR based games, of which all the other VR headsets interface with. You know, you can more or less plug most VR headsets into Steam and run
and it'll just work.
And it'll work. I don't know if the Apple one's going to do that. Somebody said it would, but I got a feeling if it's an Apple product, it's just going to be jumping through like 20 more hoops.
They got their whole, closed garden thing going on.
Yeah.
And it works within their ecosystem, but as soon as you step out of said ecosystem, it just turns into a mess. So
yeah.
Who knows?
I would love to put one on and test it out for the afternoon, but I'm not going to spend $3,500 to figure out if I like it.
I do think that it could potentially be the future in a lot of ways. Like if this stuff does become really prominent and it becomes smaller and smaller, because like the headset looks huge, but it's cool that it will actually show your eyes. Like there'll be display, so when someone looks at you, it looks like they're actually looking at someone and not just this
Are you going to do anime eyes for you? You'll just be Matimio with giant eyes.
I've confirmed I'm going to spend the money just for the anime eyes. Yeah, but it's neat. So you wouldn't need a monitor anymore. You could just sit down at a desk or wherever, and now you could have a TV screen you're watching, or you could be doing work, or literally. It's cool.
Assuming it's not. I mean, for anyone who's used VR for an extended period of time, the main issue, I think, for almost everybody is just the comfort level.
Yep, exactly.
It weighs a lot. Your head gets sweaty. The lenses get out of focus. You have to shift it around. You start getting this imprint around your eyes. There are some cool VR headsets. I think Linus reviewed one recently that was like the super minimalist ones.
Yeah,
like you just
saw that.
Those look neat and everything, but he also complained that like, yeah, because it creates a perfect seal around your eyes, you just start getting like sweaty inside of it. And it's like, yeah, there still isn't like a perfect solution for this, but I think a lot of people have made a similar conclusion to sort of what you're onto, which is that augmented reality is likely the future. And even if this product is sort of, I wouldn't say a failure, but maybe just doesn't make its money back or people don't adopt it in masses, it seems like it's intended as a stepping stone to like the better augmented reality product.
Yeah. Because if eventually they could get it to something like eyeglasses, like they were trying to do with the Google Glass a long time ago. If they can get it to that level, then augmented reality is literally the future.
Yeah.
Because then you could just have anything. I could just look over and I could have the TV running, but it's not an actual TV. It's just the AI and the algorithm working in the glass to make it look like it is. Which would be incredible. It would be very, very cool.
Yeah. I'm curious about it. I'm not buying one. I don't know. I don't personally know anyone who's buying one, actually. I've been trying to find somebody who's buying it because I just want to know why they're interested in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to try one also, but I'm more just trying to figure out who the demographic is, and I just can't quite figure it out yet. So
yeah,
maybe we're too old, Matt. Maybe we're just like kids these days.
We're just not hooked into the Apple pipeline like some others.
Yeah.
Like, if you're like an Apple person, a lot of people are just they're all in on Apple.
They make it so annoying to use their products. I have an iPad. That's my only Apple product. I got it because it has a very good sketching pen, and it's one of the better sketching tablets.
Okay.
So I do it with my kids and stuff. But if you get you can't do 2-factor authentication on an Android cell phone, and I want to punch them in the face.
Why?
Because because it's Apple. Because they want you to buy an iPhone to do it.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous. That's stupid.
And I had an ancient Apple iPad Air somewhere, like a really old one. I hadn't plugged it in for like a year or two. And I had to plug that in to authenticate it because you needed another Apple device to authenticate.
So wait, did you need to get two-factor authentication just to get the iPad or the one that you're using
something
working?
like that? I can't remember what it was. It was like logging back in iTunes or some crap. I don't know. I had an old account and it was like, oh, you got to update your stuff. And it was like, well, we can't do it. You only have one Apple device, so how on earth could we possibly authenticate your crap? I was like, are you...
How could we possibly know it's you? I don't know, because I bought it. That's how.
Send me a text, you animals. Exactly. Send me an email. I'll click the link, Oh, it's not an Apple email. Okay, that's it, Apple. I'm going to...
It almost kind of sounds like a dystopian future. It's like you have to,
Yeah.
If you're not... You haven't agreed to the corporate overlords for this product, so you are not allowed to use our products in any other way.
And all of the software companies are like this to some degree, but... Apple's
on another level.
It's hold my beer. You're either Apple or you're not. And if you're not, we don't like you and we're going to make fun of you. And you're like, what?
Well, I mean, they literally do it with their phones, where if you text people, the color will come up different if they're using an Android, which is apparently now a thing that people will shame others.
Yeah.
I've heard stories online of men and women who have been rejected. They'll be talking on Instagram or whatever they do these days.
I've seen that. I've seen those kind of memes where they're like, "Oh, you're not on an iPhone."
Yeah, and legitimately they leave. They're out. They're like, "All right, I'm not interested in this person anymore." Which, at the one hand, it's taking the trash out, because it's like if you're trying to date someone, and that's
Yeah.
the like, you know,
Yeah, you
how
just
shallow
saved
they
yourself.
exactly. But
a
on the other
terrible
hand,
relationship.
On the other hand, it's just like, oof, that's ridiculous.
It is. It is. I think it's been an Apple thing forever. It's like their famous commercial that's like the 1984 sort of parody scene, which is like them smashing the TV and everybody waking up from their indoctrination and coming over to Apple. It's like, oh, you guys are that company now, basically.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
It's like that the I'm a Mac and I'm a PC commercials. You remember those ones?
Oh, I do. Yeah, the
shaming. Yeah, they're like, okay, we're gonna shame you for not being the cool Apple person. I think a lot of that hasn't been as successful in some of the other markets around the world. Like, I know Apple's not a huge brand in a lot of countries, so that makes me a little bit happier that it hasn't worked, but it's definitely worked over here. It's like,
it's interesting how companies will try to use shame to sell their products, because there's I used to see there was these commercials for like car insurance where they're like, don't be this loser. It was like this guy, this 40-year-old, literally, it was like this 40-year-old man living with his parents, and he was acting like a child, and they're like, don't be a loser. Get off of your parents' car insurance and be a man. Basically was what they were trying to say. It's like, so just spend needless money so that they can look more independent. Like, what is this nonsense, you know? So it's pretty gross how companies...
I give them props. I'm giving them props for trying different marketing strategies. They're like, what if we shame them into spending more money?
Shame them, yeah. Exactly.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah. And the demographic for that has to be really small, too, because I think at 25, they can no longer be like, I almost said level 25. At age 25...
What level are you, Matt?
35 now, surprisingly. They have to be off their parents' insurance anyways. So like there's got to be like this like only small little window of people this is actually advertised towards, unless there's something I'm missing about the entire thing. Unless you can have family packages that go beyond that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're like, but my son hasn't grown up and left the house. Like, he should be on our family plan.
Right. Still, it's kind of gross how they will try to shame people into spending money. It's like, really? That's where we're at now? Shaming people?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you, man. So I gotta admit, it's pretty hard to talk about gamer stuff with you now that I'm like a full-on game dev. I kind of forgot what it's like to be a gamer or how to talk gamer, you know? I'm like, I'm sorry, I see the gaming world from the development side of things now.
Oh, so now you're too good for talking about video games, huh? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I'll talk to you about them, but it's going to be from the development perspective. So I don't know if you'll understand what I'm saying per se.
Where is this going? Am I too stupid for you now? Okay.
I'm a game dev now, Matt. That's what I'm trying to get to. I've started a game project, and I saw learning your video. I'm learning game tools. Anything you want to know about game dev stuff, I can give you an answer for it. It might not be correct, but I'll certainly try.
I can at least sound like an authority on the topic.
Ray tracing. That's what it's ray tracing. Multi-threading. Yeah. You need a higher clock rate.
Yeah, I saw your video on your announcement of how you're working on a game. Did you announce what the title of it is, or have you not? Is that a working project?
No. So basically, we're doing a game jam for about 2 months. And I buddied up with an old friend of mine to make this game, but it's been a while since we've worked together or hung out, and this 2-month period will basically be a good work time to figure out if we want to work together for the duration of the game. And basically, I need to make a company and then register the game name on Steam. So I don't want to say the name before we register it.
No, that's fair. I don't blame you.
So I do have a name for it, but in the meantime, I will be calling it LevelCap's Space Game.
Nice.
With the
nice. I really didn't think you were going to go with space and ponies. It was a unique twist. I didn't see coming.
You gotta think outside the box these days. You know, I mean, how many more survival shooters can we have? How many more?
Not enough, in my opinion.
Yeah. How many more Star Citizens can we have? No, like, you can't just keep making the same old games. unicorns in space is really the premise of it, and I'm just excited about some of the new mechanics we have with just like rainbow unicorns versus like ruby unicorns and the abilities.
And all the different abilities. Yeah, I love it. Different classes. It's great. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When you level up, you go from unicorn to
a bicorn?
Bicorn. Yeah. I was like, what do you call it? Duocorn?
Duocorn? I have no idea.
And eventually you'll become a tricorn. And shit gets real when you're a tricorn, man. Woo,
yeah.
The abilities.
I can only imagine. Where's all the horns coming out of at that point?
Don't want to know, actually.
You don't.
We're going to have to put some blurry fields on the screen. Look away, children. Look away. It's funny. Like the Super Saiyan of our game, really. It's like, oh, he's getting his third unicorn, his third corn.
His hair is getting longer. His horn's getting bigger. Wait, his horn is getting bigger? Is this loud? That's cool, though, dude. Congratulations. That's really neat. It's cool.
Yeah, thank you. I'm learning 3 different programs at once. Let me just say this, dude. Some of the crap that I used to have to deal with when I was doing this back in the day. Oh, so much easier now, man. For anyone who's had to manually UV unwrap a complex 3-dimensional object and then paint it by hand in Photoshop and then by hand make a normal map, dear God, like now...
Miserable, I imagine.
Horrible. It's the worst. And like some people enjoyed it, but I think they're kind of masochists, you know, the same people that like whip themselves with a... Yeah, it's just a horrible, horrible process, and every dev team had to do it, and it was just like time to unwrap the object and paint it, and it's just. And then if you wanted to change it later, you're like, hey, good job texturing that whole model.
Do it again.
Can we add a second horn to that unicorn? And the guy would be like, maybe, but I'm gonna have to like redo everything. Yeah. It was just absolute nightmare. Now I'm like using this tool called Substance Painter, and it's just like, boom, does like 90% of it for you, and I'm already like a better texture artist than I ever have been by just like clicking buttons. I'm like, oh, look at that! I made a broken like wall texture by pressing 2 buttons. Before you were just like taking photographs of things and scanning them onto your computer. It was terrible.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see how much more accessible games are becoming.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's been 10 years since I've been doing it, but coming back into it, I'm like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is nice. I can progress quickly. I can
actually start seeing the fruits of my labor faster than before.
Yeah. Getting into like a good workflow, building stuff in like a day, sending it out. Yeah. So yeah, if you got any game dev questions, dude, just let me know. I'll educate you. Yeah. Anybody else out there who wants to know, you know, believe me, I don't mind talking down towards people and
talking down towards people. Yeah. I've definitely noticed that over the years.
I don't hide it.
You do not.
I know who I am.
Yeah. You could say it's almost a form of being humble a little bit.
I'm really more humble than most, if you think about it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
The humblest, some have said.
Yeah. Speaking of small game companies, do you think this is a topic that I saw being discussed by, I think her name is Alana Pierce. You probably know of her.
Yeah, I've heard her name. Yeah.
She made a video and she was basically talking. It was a lot about like how negativity in games and stuff like that sells. And you'll see channels, it feels like it's getting worse. We've talked about this, I think, a little bit before, where people are constantly just always focusing on negative. Everything is now a big deal, even if it's the smallest little thing. But do you think that there is now almost a market for bad video games, and that this almost is becoming a marketing and an actual business policy to make horrible games, but market it on an IP like the Godzilla game or the recent Lord of the Rings
King Kong game?
Yeah, King Kong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Godzilla. King Kong. I guess Godzilla would work too.
Yes. So I would say within the indie world, for sure, right? It's like that Only Up game. It's not like that guy made that because he thought it was going to be a fantastically polished experience that people gravitated to. He knew what he was doing. He was making the game that was going to be just mess with you. It's like the old Slenderman games and stuff that were just really trash if you look back at them. But then there's that what was that Metal Gear game? They made like a parody Metal Gear game. Do you remember that?
No. Was it multiplayer? That one?
No, not that one. I think it was Metal Gear. But there was like
I can't remember.
A parody one where they're basically just making fun of their own franchise to a degree. The only problem there is that it was actually a good game. So that was like one of the first times I saw a big studio make an intentionally goofy
Metal Gear
game.
Solid Revengeance?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, yeah, that game slapped. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a good game. Yeah. But it was kind of a parody on games.
Well, what I'm more referring to is you buy, I guess you somehow get the rights to making a King Kong game.
Yeah. How did that happen, by the way?
And then so that people know about it, because they're like, oh, I know this IP. Mm-hmm. It's got to be at least somewhat decent. And then it comes out and it's horrible. And then so that's the way people know about it. And then everyone talks about it, which then sells copies because now people want to see how bad it is.
King Kong did not make any money because it's
right. That's what I'm hoping for too.
Because I mean, you could say like The Day After falls into that category of a
exactly. The Day After would be another
game
example.
That got a lot of press for being horrible. But I believe most people refunded that, and those guys made their money off of basically investors getting screwed over versus. Less about screwing over the people who bought the game, because I think most were able to return it for a refund. But yeah, for IPs like King Kong that maybe don't care about their IP as much, or license it out to people without as much control. Like you couldn't do it with Star Wars because Disney's all over that. If you're working on a Star Wars project, Disney needs approval before things can move forward.
They're not going to let you just throw out an absolute dumpster fire of a game.
Yeah, and I've heard it makes it a nightmare actually to work with those IPs. So if you're a studio and you're like, I want to make a Star Wars game, let's phone up Disney.
Good luck.
And like you can do it, but you've got to like have a meeting all the time with them, and they have to approve crap, and it sucks. I'm sure it's just not a fun process. So with King Kong, I would imagine the only way that game got made is that they just paid the lump sum fee to license the IP, or maybe it's we get a percentage of the sales or whatever their deal is, right?
Right.
And then, but for whatever reason, maybe the deal involves, hey, you're hands off of development. We're just going to use the King Kong idea and do whatever we want with it. Because let's be honest, King Kong doesn't really have like a lore that's that important. Like somebody could take it and do whatever they want to.
Yeah, you could. It's
you're not going to be upsetting the King Kong fans too much. They'll be like, "Hey, he wasn't on the island in the Pacific.
It's not the origin story of Anakin."
Yeah. So they're less protective over the IP. So you buy the IP and then you just do the calculation. You ship a crappy game that's barely playable. The thing that surprised me about that one is that it shipped on like PlayStation 5 or something.
Yeah, well, I think it's the same company that made that Walking Dead game too. That was just horrendously bad.
Yeah, and I thought PlayStation and like Xbox took a stronger hand in deciding what comes to the console market.
Yeah, I thought they were too.
Maybe that's just opened up a bit, where they're just like, whatever, we'll just handle it like Steam and let anybody publish their game. Like you don't have to go through an approval process.
The Walking Dead one. So there's a moment where two main characters fight in the show, and you have that fight in the game, and you're literally just shooting each other in the face, like just just blasting each other in the face. It's like, what is this? Oh, it's bad. It is horrendously bad.
Oh man,
you're like picking up like loot as you're fighting. Like the animations are really janky, and this is, I think, like the whole point is. Like we're talking about it. No one would have ever heard of this game if it wasn't associated with that intellectual property. And it's so bad. But like,
how many people want to buy?
Is that a business strategy? Like that's my question. Like, does that actually sell? Are we at a point now where people are just curious at like that morbid curiosity is so overwhelming?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's not really a yes or no answer. I think it's a depends, because you've got like Goat Simulator, which was like, that started off as a joke, I believe, where they're like working on our new game, and it was just like some devs just screwing around in their engine, and they posted it, and it got like 1 million retweets or whatever, and then they were like, hey, do you want us to actually make this into a game? Because obviously this was a joke, but we'll make it.
I didn't know that was the origin story, but that's cool.
Yeah, and then I think they crowdfunded it or something, and so I think that's how Goat Simulator started. And so you're like, oh, cool. So there is a market. But even so, Goat Simulator was as crappy as it was. That was the point of the game, is to make it funny and crappy. I think you have to ride that line, because if it's just frustrating and crappy, then okay. I mean, like, does King Kong ride the line of funny and crappy, or is it frustrating and crappy? I think it's frustrating, but
I just thought it was an interesting topic, because it does seem like there is, and it could just be that everyone focuses on the negativity now. It could be just that that's the culture of gaming, and just really people in general these days we're always talking about bad things, and it's never the good things.
It leads, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't want to name any content creators, but there have been content creators for a long time, as long as you or I, who have focused specifically on negative reviews of video games.
Call of Duty gamers in particular, there's channels that all they do is talk, like, you only play Call of Duty and all you do is talk bad about it. I'm like, and that's fine if you want to, but there's other games out there.
I like the gamers who have evolved from who have moved past Call of Duty and now just bag on it, and they're just like, I'm never touching that piece of junk again. It's like listening to Shroud talk about Call of Duty. It's just like, it brings a smile to my face, because I'm just like, people respect him within the gaming world because he's incredibly good at video games. And just hearing him being like, yeah, all these mechanics are absolute dog trash. I don't want to touch this game. It's terrible. And it's one of the biggest shooters out there. And you're just like, yeah, that's how I feel about it too. But nobody will listen to me about it. So it makes me feel good to hear him say it.
It lends some credibility.
Yeah. Yeah. When one of the best gamers in the world is like, these mechanics are absolute trash. Like, okay, well, he's one of the best gamers in the world. You can't argue with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I hear you.
He's making a game too. But
with Sacriel, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's more of consulting. I don't think he's actually like really getting into the nitty gritty. I think it's more of just a consultant thing.
Yeah. There's a whole, it's not Gearbox, but it's some other studio. I forgot what it's called. And yeah, they just sort of contacted and they're like, hey, let's collaborate on a project. So I don't think they're in there making assets, but both Sacriel and Shroud are smart dudes who I think could absolutely direct a game to be good. So I'm curious about what their involvement is.
I think it is some sort of survival game too. And I know Sacriel really likes that style of game. So I hope it turns out well. I love that genre. And if from someone like Sacriel, who I respect his opinion in a lot of things, and if he can bring his own vision of trying to make something along those lines, but work, because a lot of these games, they promise the world, but they just always seem to fall short. If he can maybe has some good ideas to finally deliver, that'd be cool.
Yeah. That is one of the more annoying things about the AAA side of development, is they really have to oversell their game like crazy to get those sales, right? Because they're investing millions of dollars into production. They can't afford to not have it sell. So they have to come up with all these gimmicks or catchy things or crazy phrases about what sets their game apart.
Like tornadoes.
Yeah. God damn it, man. I swear I criticized the Battlefield 2042 trailer when it dropped for that. And people were like, stop being salty. Just enjoy the win. And I was just like, you guys aren't going to like this.
It's a gimmick. It's almost like it's a gimmick. And it was.
There's like Des being like, yeah, a tornado came through our firefight and picked up a container and threw it, and it killed the guy trying to snipe me. I'm like, it's never happened.
It literally has never happened. It literally physically does not happen, because the debris doesn't actually interact with the world in that respect. Yeah.
It might have happened on an early dev build, and then they're like, oh, hey, this is way too computationally heavy for consoles. We have to turn this off now.
Yeah.
And that was
cool idea.
Yeah.
Just cool
idea. Yeah. Well, I hear the news around town is that the next Battlefield game is going to have multiple tornadoes. It's going to be tsunamis. Tsunami fields.
It's going to be Sharknadoes this time.
It's okay. Here's the premise, Matt. It's water world, right? But there's only tiny little islands left. And everybody's fighting over the small islands. But also because the world's crappy now, there's giant earthquakes.
Where did all the water come from?
Matt, stop. Ice melted, okay?
Yeah, but there's only so much. Okay,
more ice hit Earth from an asteroid that was made out of ice, okay?
just a giant asteroid ball.
There you go. That solves the whole thing.
Hits the planet, yeah.
And it melts because it's a giant asteroid of ice.
And then it just rained for 20 days straight.
Yeah, it doesn't have to rain that. It's an asteroid, so it's... Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't mean to poke holes in your... Okay, water world, small islands. Keep going.
I just gave you a airtight plot, okay?
Airtight.
Airtight. Small islands. Now there's earthquakes, tsunamis all the time. So you're mid-firefight. Oh, crap, tsunami alarm. You know, like, here comes the big wave. We gotta, like, get on the jet skis and, like, do barrel rolls off of the waves while we're shooting each other, man.
Cowabunga, bro.
Sounds like a Call of Duty trailer.
Yeah, it really does. It does.
Yeah. I don't think I'd play that game. But
I'd play it. I'd play the hell out of it.
Yeah, I'd play a Waterworld game, a Waterworld Battlefield where you're like on jet skis and boats and stuff.
I mean, yeah.
Do you remember Waterworld? Like,
I remember it. I didn't really watch the full thing, though, I don't think.
Well, it was like a huge deal because I think it was one of the most expensive films of its time because they had to build these massive underwater sets because they didn't have good CGI. So like, let's just build the water world. And you're like, that's going to be expensive.
And it was apparently very expensive. And in the movie, it wasn't very good from what I remember.
No, it was very silly, but
it was more of a cult classic. I think there's like there's a cult following behind it, but
it's a fun silly. It's a fun silly.
Yeah.
I recommend it. Everybody go watch Waterworld right now.
Speaking of maybe not the best stuff, transitioning to, you know, the show Reacher?
Yeah. Did we talk about that last time?
I think
maybe a little.
Yeah. I enjoyed season 1. Mm-hmm. I did. I thought it was fine. It was okay. It was a fun show. Season 2 though,
good, bad?
I have to vent a little bit. So I'm going to try not to spoil things.
Okay, watch out. Jason's in chat and he's defensive of Reacher.
Good.
He gave me an earful about...
He can't... If he saw this episode, so I watched episode 6. It is one of the worst action episodes I have seen in a prominent show in a very, very long time. First of all, lot of so there, you know, Reacher is supposed to be, I think it's based off of the Tom Clancy universe, right?
No, so we were wrong. And Jason gave me an earful about this.
Okay.
2 different authors. So Jack Ryan is Tom Clancy. Jack Reacher is a different author.
Well, I imagine it's based off of a book series or at least a world where it's supposed to be
a book
sort
series.
of, you know, tactical investigation, you know, and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you have characters that are using automatic weapons one-handed. And they're just like...
Wait, how do you shoot?
I don't shoot anything, but if I did,
thought you shot
it would...
Cool. I thought you...
Cool. Yeah. So they're one-handed while on the back of a vehicle.
Well, I mean, is it an Uzi or is it a full-on assault rifle?
I have no idea. It looked like an assault. It looked like Okay. It looked like a just fully automatic. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they're all missing. Of course, they're missing every single shot.
Yeah.
There's a dude a cop who is hiding behind.
Well, that's realistic. You're gonna fire one-handed off the back of a moving vehicle. You should miss all your shots.
Yeah, but they're described as being like, you know, a special task force, like they're the best of the best, and like this is how they fire.
Yeah.
Then there's a scene where there is a police officer who is trying to shoot back at them, and you get a perfect view of what he's shooting at, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's basically behind him, and he's like aiming up at the sky, and they're not up in the sky, by the way. They're like on the ground, and he's just shooting up into the air for whatever reason. I mean, suppressive fire, just the noise itself is going to scare them, I guess.
I always go into my filmmaking eyes and think on set, like, who was telling him to shoot in the air? Wasn't somebody like, hey, aim at them, not in the sky?
Yeah.
Or was he aiming at them and then the director of photography was like, could you aim up a bit? Because the light bounces off the gun in a cool way when you do that.
Could be.
And then they got all the footage back in the editing room. And they're like, the idiot's not even aiming at them. Like, do we have any cuts of this? No? All right. I'll just use this crappy one.
Yeah. So there's also a police chase where, well, not a police chase. I should say a police officer is being chased by the bad guys.
Okay.
And through New York City, I think it's New York City, through a major city, and he doesn't call in backup.
Right. Look, if you're a good enough cop, Matt, I mean, don't be a pussy, right?
Man just has people getting. They're using. So first of all, they're using automatic weapons, so I'm sure it's making a ton of noise. They're driving for an extended period of time. There's no one else on the street.
Yeah,
and he doesn't call in backup. He then proceeds. That's a little bit more spoiler. I don't want to get into spoilers for people that actually want to watch the show. But let's just say. Then there's Reacher, the character himself. He's massive. The actor is an absolute Giga Chad. He goes into a bus and he hides in the bus somehow. And then the henchmen come in and he silently takes them out. Like gets behind. Like how does he hide?
How do you sneak behind somebody in a bus? That's virtually impossible.
Exactly.
Did he put on a shawl and was like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Henchman"?
The other henchman comes in, sees his buddy on the ground, stares at his buddy, and then he gets choked out. Like, I'm like, what is happening right now?
It's classic, man.
What is going on?
The old distract him with your dead friend's body maneuver.
Yeah, and I love how how he was hidden because he was off camera is how he was hidden. He literally just steps out from frame and just chokes him out. It's like there was like a seat there. There wasn't like there was nothing to hide him behind. It was just a seat.
To get that shot, the camera guy had to put on a narrower lens. And they're like, you can see him. He's like 4 foot wide. Just put on a narrower lens, and then okay, it works now. Now step in a frame.
Yeah. And so it's like a thing they say throughout the entire show is that details matter. Like that's like a catchphrase that they use. Like details matter. And then, but apparently details don't actually matter when you're actually trying to write a good action scene. In a lot of cases, story too. Like it's starting to fall apart a little bit. Like as I said, I really enjoyed season 1 because it was just fun. But man, people are like literally walking out of cover to shoot at the bad guys. A person gets shot. They don't apply pressure. They're just like, oh, rest in peace, bro. You're dead. Like, I'm not gonna like just everything from just a basic level. I'm not like an expert in military tactics or anything like that. I play video games. I'm a nerd online, but to see all of these little details just go unnoticed, it was bad. I was not impressed.
You've triggered Jason. Apparently there's a reason why he didn't call in backup, but I don't know.
Okay, explain all the other bad things that happened then.
Yeah, this is just very prevalent in popular TV shows now. It's when I stopped watching Ahsoka, it was like an episode where they're going on a spaceship to investigate a disturbance, whatever, I don't know. They get intel, the bad things happening over here. Let's go investigate. They find a big spaceship or space station, which has tons of guns on it, way better than their ship. And their strategy is to just fly towards it and see what happens.
Oh.
And it's just like
that's a strategy.
You're just watching it. You're like, man, you're supposed to be one of the like greatest Jedis of all time. You've fought in the Clone Wars, so you must have a pretty good idea about tactics and like how to approach a combat situation. And it was just like, let's just fly and hope it doesn't blow us out of the sky, which of course it doesn't because the plot armor is so thick. But you're just, I had to stop watching at that point where I was like, oh, this is just going to be that show where
that kind of a show.
The main character is going to live until the death music starts playing. When they start playing the music where like something sad's going to happen, you're like, oh wait, I need to pay attention now because they're going to actually let the character die. Despite all the terrible decisions.
I don't mind having a little bit of some loose plot devices used to try and move the plot forward. Like I get it. It's very hard to write to make everything feel cohesive. It's challenging. But then there's just when small little things kind of add up over the time where it's like, you didn't need to do that. You that's just bad. It's just bad writing, and it does take you away from it.
Lazy writing is what it is.
It is lazy writing. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, you couldn't have thought of a reason. Like you can sit down and think of, usually while you're watching it, you can think of a better reason for how you could get somebody into this situation that doesn't make them seem like a complete imbecile, you know? Yep. You're like, hey, let's let a smart person get into this situation as opposed to somebody completely incompetent in every way. At which point you're just like, I don't respect the character anymore. So I don't really care what happens from this point on.
Yeah. So needless to say, I'm a little disappointed with the season 2. I'll still probably finish it off because I do like the character and it's fun in some ways, but man, that was a rough episode for me.
I'm tempted to check it. My wife and I sat down and watched the first episode, and we just both kind of like, you want to watch the second one? I was like, nah, I don't think I can handle this. It's just I don't think you're missing out
too much then if you weren't enthused with the first one.
I do understand the joy of watching bad stuff. It's like we were talking about last episode. I enjoyed Rebel Moon, but it really was a bad movie.
It was a bad movie.
Yeah, there was no way to... I could only say good things about the visual effects, you know, and you're like, if that's the only good thing you can say, it doesn't sound like it was a great film. So
did you pay attention to why he didn't call back up? That doesn't excuse everything else that was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Bad action. It's a symptom of modern film.
I'm just a snob now. I'm just a tactical, gaming snob.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's my territory too, man. I'm a game snob. I'm a movie snob. I don't. You're probably a book snob at this point, right? The amount of books.
A little bit. I start to notice tropes and things. I'm like, oh, really? This again? Okay. All right. Yeah.
I don't like it in stories when they just, especially with fantasy, because in fantasy you can make up anything you want to solve a problem, and that drives me mental when they're just like, it was the dragon's tear cured him, and you're like, what the flip are you talking about? Shut up.
The Deus Ex Machina stuff. Yeah.
You're like, you just invented it. You were just like, what? I don't know, the leaf, the magical leaf tree bird cured the guy, and now he's not dead. You're like, I guess you could just say whatever you want. It's fantasy at this point. Give me some rules, man. Give me some rules.
It's why for like animation in anime, I get really frustrated when like literally the only thing stopping you is your imagination, and it's another harem. Boy. It's another high school kid who becomes the savior of the world. Oh man, didn't see that one coming.
Mm-hmm.
It's like literally, that's why I like Attack on Titan so much, is that it's such a unique world, it's such a unique universe, and it executes it pretty damn well. So I love that stuff when it's done well.
I want to watch the new Miyazaki film. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't either. I heard some mixed things about it, but I'll just have to wait and see. Good. Yeah,
it's got Robert Pattinson in it.
Oh, yeah. It's Miyazaki, so it's like you have to see it because he's like the goat of anime, you know? Like, you're just... God, what's going to happen after Miyazaki? Like, we're just not going to get Miyazaki-level anime anymore. Miyazaki, too. I think he was trying to, like, build up the studio, but it's sort of failing. Or they did that 3D animation stuff, and everybody hated it. But it is what it is.
Details matter, and you missed a lot of them. Jason, you are on so much copium right now. I'm actually getting frustrated that you are copium so hard right now on this show.
Bro, I had to listen to like a couple paragraphs worth of Jason after the last podcast when we mixed up Jack Reacher and Jack Ryan. He's like, I can't even.
That's really funny.
It's all right. We appreciate you, Jason.
Are you playing any other games lately, or are you just same old?
Kind of same old a little bit. I've been doing a bunch of racing with my son.
With the kid, yeah.
Bunch of chess. He's into chess. We keep playing chess. I'm trying to help him with his unit development. The game dev thing really just ate up my time a lot, and I was just like, must dev game, and so I was just staying up late working on that stuff. But there have been some cool... I'm waiting to jump into Star Citizen when something cool happens. Nothing particularly cool has happened quite yet, but a very interesting leak write-up happened basically in the past couple days that gives some pretty crazy behind-the-scenes look at what's going on with the company and like all these crazy goals and stuff, and sort of where they're going with the multiplayer. I have reason to believe, I think the leak sounds pretty legitimate. The pipeline that it's coming from has been fairly credible lately, and it's interesting. It's like it's painting a picture of how many devs came over to work on the multiplayer, which is like almost 300 potentially, and then like them setting these really intense goals and like the devs trying to aim for them. It implied that they're aiming for a 1.0 of Star Citizen at, I think, the end of 2025. I'd have to look at the leak again. There's a lot of dates and timelines in it, but it sounded pretty implausible.
That's not that far off, at least in Star Citizen's timescale.
Yeah. Well, and it also indicated that they were interested in kind of MMOifying the multiplayer, in that right now there's a lot of things that you can do, but there isn't really a guiding quest system to kind of get you out there. So that's potentially a big portion of what they're looking at. Now, again, this is all grain of salt. It came through a leak. Yeah, well, they said it's potentially the same amount of work as like what Squadron 42 is. And
right. And that took a decade. So
yeah, so it's sort of, I mean, who knows now that they have the tools in place, how long that would take. But yeah, it sounds super ambitious. And this is not official announcements from CIG. But right. It does sound it sounds encouraging, but also a little bit crazy at the same time. Where
I do think having a skeleton for like quests and stuff like that can guide people, at least on a basic level, to start understanding the basics of the game would be intelligent. I think that would be smart, and not just have it be, okay, you've got your ship now, do whatever you want. I think having some quests would be a good idea, but a full on giant MMO style story quest system, or even just that'd be a lot.
Yeah,
that'd be very, very difficult.
I would personally enjoy it if you kind of lay out some basic quest work to keep people entertained for a while, and some good end game quest stuff to pull from. But if they released like quest packages, almost like DLC, where it's like, here's the new system and here's a whole new line of quests and things that you can do and engage in, like that would be great content, right? Where it's still multiplayer, where you can still fight other players and hunt for resources and claim territory and whatever. But for the people that don't want to partake in that aspect of the game as much, having a really robust quest system makes a lot of sense. And it's always going to be the worst at the start, because that's when you have the least amount of quest content. But if they keep building that content up indefinitely over time, somebody coming into the game later is just like, oh my God, I have endless amazing quests to pick from and choose and do. So I think that's how I would develop the game. They're talking about building out the instancing system a lot more, so that when you go down to a mission area with a group of friends, that could potentially become an instanced area where somebody isn't going to necessarily come by and destroy your whole mission because they want to drop a bomb on you or something.
Right.
Which can pretty much happen now. So I think they're looking into playing out instancing more, which everything said here was like, that's what I would do too, to progress the game and make multiplayer more interesting. So it's good news on that front. It's more just this timeline seems a bit unrealistic. Granted, they haven't announced it officially. This is just leaked information, and it's coming from a bunch of corroborated developer reports, or uncorroborated. I don't know. Corroborated within the pipeline infrastructure.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a long write-up, though. I found it interesting and encouraging, and I'm looking forward to this year because Squadron 42 feature complete 2023 means probably a launch in 2024. I mean, that's what I would assume they're aiming for.
You would hope so, but at this point, who knows?
Who knows, man?
It's Star Citizen. I had a chance to play a game. I don't think I mentioned this last time. It was called SteamWorld Build. Have you ever heard of that one?
SteamWorld what? SteamWorld
Build. It's kind of like you basically are managing. It's a city management game. You know,
I think
Anno,
I've
the Anno
seen
series.
a little bit of it. Yeah, I like Anno a lot, actually.
Yeah, so it's like Anno, where you need to fulfill the basic resources of like the peasants. But in this case, the peasants are robots, and you get like different kinds of robots that require different needs, and you're basically building. You upgrade buildings to accommodate for them, right?
They need the servo factories and stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah. So it's essentially Anno, but the twist on it is that the way you gather resources is that you have a dungeon, like Dungeon Keeper, where you have to go down below, and it becomes. You remember Dungeon Keeper back in the day? I never played them, but everyone was saying that it's very similar. And then it's grid based, and you have to go in there and like mine out and find resources down below to mine for the people up top in your actual city. And it combines a little bit of combat down there too. There's like a little bit of tower defense and stuff like that, where you need to set up defenses to guard your actual resources and resource generation. And then it's basically just kind of a cool mix between the two, a blending of genres almost. And it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Cool. I'm looking at the visuals of it, and it looks like a fun little game, kind of cutesy art style.
It took me about 8 hours to beat the first level. And by first level, I mean, it's basically different maps. So it's not really level. It's like I beat the game basically.
You get the full experience in one level. Okay.
If you wanted to keep playing, you can go to different maps, which probably have different challenges, and you can increase the difficulty if you wanted to. I kind of got my fill off of that, and I probably won't go back, but it was just it was a fun blend of those two games. Cool little art style. The story, there is a story, even though you could see it coming from a mile away. But it was fun.
That's cool. I like games that have RTS city building games that have good trains in them. This looks like it has good trains. I'm down for that.
There are some trains, yes. I like trains.
I like trains. I think my son would like this game because it's got trains in it. It's I loaded up. There's a kind of a fan remake of Total Annihilation. Do you remember that game?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So there's like I think it's free to play little fan remake of Total Annihilation. It's actually pretty competent. It's a fun little thing, but I loaded that up and I was playing with Jeff and my son, my 6-year-old, and he's like, we're building robots and they get bigger and bigger and bigger and like shoot bigger lasers each time. And I just seeing somebody kind of have that same RTS, like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever sort of moment. It was kind of fun to watch, see the game through his eyes a little bit to a degree. Yeah.
I like real-time strategies. I like city builders, but I think I might like city builders a little bit more at times because I noticed that I like to manage my base in a cool way in real-time strategies.
Yeah.
Like this has got to look cool and also be functional at the same time, but also I need to not die to invading armies.
I like city build. I like the base defense city builders where you have to defend against waves. That's fun.
Yeah.
I don't like having to have a base and then move your army around and fight while also building your like that's the classic Command and Conquer /
having to fight a war on two different fronts for real-time strategy is ridiculously difficult. I think it's the reason why I didn't like the not Command and Conquer, Company of Heroes. I recently tried out Company of Heroes 3 and I hated it. Because you have to manage like an entire front line and your camera is super zoomed in. You can't really see what's going on around the map very well. And I just felt like there was just too much going on. Yeah. And I absolutely hated it. I tried. I really wanted to love it and I couldn't get into it.
It's always surprised me that format of RTS has stuck around for so long, because just talking about Total Annihilation, which is a very old game, Chris Taylor, the developer on that, was like, I'm not going to do this like up close in your face RTS thing. I'm going to let you just zoom all the way out. Look at everything in the big picture, move stuff around, zoom in over there, micromanage, zoom out.
Right, because if you're supposed to be a commander who's managing the front line, you would think you would have a bigger view of the front line so that you could actually act accordingly.
Yeah.
But as soon as, and this is, I think, it's not an issue with Age of Empires. I still really like playing Age of Empires 4. But as soon as it's more than two fronts, like my brain just cannot, because I can't see everything.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a holdover from old game tech limitations where zooming out was like, we can't do a zoom out. Are you crazy? Yeah. Like that's way too much technology. And Total Annihilation was literal 3D polygons. It was like, here's your triangle tank type units,
right.
like it was very simple. So they could afford to do the zooming and
zoom
stuff.
Out more. Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't think the original Total Annihilation zoomed. I think Supreme Commander zoomed, and I think the original Total Annihilation didn't zoom.
I didn't have a chance to play those games. So
okay, Supreme Commander did the zoom, and honestly, Supreme Commander is a masterpiece of an RTS, and it's just one of those things that it's like it's too bad that they didn't really continue on with that path of it, and they're going back. There's that new something Storm game that ex-Blizzard devs are making. Like basically, it looks like a spiritual successor to StarCraft.
Oh,
StarCraft,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like Kickstarter. Oh, Stormgate. So I got I don't know. I was looking at the Kickstarter for that.
Looks ugly.
It does look ugly. Oh, it looks
very ugly.
I don't really like that kind of the mix of cartoony and sci-fi is not my favorite mixture.
I don't mind it, but they it does not like units all look the same. I have no idea. Like I tried watching, and this is true for other games as well. But I really struggled to understand what I was looking at on screen at any given time. It just looks very muddy. It like everything looks kind of soft and round, which can work, but they really need to. I don't know. There's something about the aesthetic that I'm not really fond of. I'll still probably play it when it releases, but I'm hoping that this isn't their final art or their final, pass on their on the visuals of it all.
So. I'm not sure how this works entirely, so I could be speaking out of my ass, but when I saw the Kickstarter for Stormgate, I mean, if you go, I'm looking at the page right now, and it looks very far along in development, right? Like, yeah. Like they're showing you battles that look like that look like StarCraft 2 battles. Like there's full bases, the UI's there, there's unit composition, they're moving around and fighting. It looks very polished. But the Kickstarter is still like they've made their goal. They're almost at $2 million, but there's 23 days to go on the Kickstarter. And I'm like, they're not kickstarting this game.
It's not. So Kickstarter has become less of a kickstart and more of just a
pre-order.
Different way of. It's kind of a pre-order. Some company. So I do I've done a fair amount of Kickstarters. A lot of books that you can't see in the back are Kickstartered. So for example, it'll be like for a book that has already been made, but it's like a deluxe edition of it. So you're like, yes, they could have some complications of not being able to get the book done in terms of like production, but like, the book's out. You've already read the book. Now you're just getting a shinier version of it. And it kind of feels like that's what they're going with this, is that you are getting, it's kind of like a storefront. You're right. But I think that is also still going towards the development too in some respects. So yeah, Kickstarter is a very gray area, gray area when it comes to.
What occurred to me is that this game is going to sell on Steam, right? So
yeah, I would imagine
most people are going to buy it on Steam. RTSs don't sell on console really, so it's probably won't even get ported. And if it does, it won't sell much. So Steam's the main marketplace. Steam takes a 30% cut for a game sale, which let's be honest is ridiculous, but they can do it because they control the market. If you buy the game on Kickstarter, I think Kickstarter only takes a 2 to 5% cut of that money. So if they use Kickstarter as sort of a pre-order type platform
to make more money that way,
you get to keep a lot more of that money basically.
Right.
So if you're just like, hey, kickstart the game, it's for the exact same price as we're going to launch the game for. So just buy it here early. You get your Kickstarter bundle, your cosmetic pack or whatever. Then do you have to pay that 30% on Steam? I don't think you do. I think you
just have it.
Yeah, you just send them the code, right? Which would be a Steam code or a launcher code.
Because that's a really good question. Is like how, because I don't think codes are free to make. I think, but I'm not really sure.
I think they are, because just having tested.
Well, no, because I've heard from game devs that well, I've heard from, who knows if this is actually true, but there has been like community managers that will say like these Steam keys are not free. Like there is
interesting.
Like game codes. Like I just assumed that they could just generate a code, but apparently generating codes is not just like they can't just snap their fingers and generate a code for people. They do run out of codes because it costs them money. Maybe I don't know. I thought it was all free, but I could be very wrong.
Yeah, man, there must be a system in place to prevent devs from just being like, buy it on Steam or our website for like $5 off, but we get to keep 100%, and then we'll send you a code that you can install on Steam. Yeah, there's got to be a safeguard in there. Okay, I thought I was onto something, but maybe I'm just not thinking about an obvious ploy that people would try.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not a big fan of their art style right now.
It just doesn't look like they're evolving the RTS. It just looks like they're making StarCraft or Warcraft again.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I think that might be what a lot of people want, is they just want more. And because Blizzard doesn't seem to want to make another one, then that opens up that market.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where StarCraft is such a big IP that Blizzard feels like they need to have 100-man dev team to make the game at the quality that they're expected to make it at, and that's just probably not going to be profitable for them. So it does open up the world for an indie dev to make a more indie version of the same type of game. So, and that's what the RTS market has become. It's all just become indie games now. It's like Homeworld 3, which I'm looking forward to, which looks really cool. It's definitely an indie team. It's not like the big AAA budget compared to what the past games in the franchise have been, or were, at least compared to other games at that time. Yeah. So it's like, it's all just gone indie. Even if it is a major IP like Homeworld within the RTS genre, like that's the top of the top when it comes to like space RTS games. Even that doesn't look like a massive production. It looks like a small team.
Yeah.
But that's all right, man. It's just the evolution of gaming. I'm excited to play it. Play Homeworld, not really Stormgate. I'll probably pass over Stormgate. It's pretty looking, but it just, I didn't like StarCraft as a gameplay format particularly.
That's fair.
So I liked watching competitive players play it in sort of a like, I could never do that, but it's cool to watch them do it. And the
micromanage everything.
Yeah, and the commentators were always good about commentating a professional match. So I found that entertaining. But it's, it's kind of it's like I can watch golf and be entertained, but I don't want to go play golf.
I want to go actually do it myself.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you playing tonight?
No idea.
Damn, man. Just living on it. Flying by the seat of your pants, man.
Living on the edge, yep.
Yeah. Something by the seat. I don't know how that phrase goes. Flying by the seat of your pants?
Flying by the seat of your pants, I think is what it is, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'll play the battle, because I think this is the final day for the Battlefield event, which has got that, like, those flying vehicles. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
Okay. The hover quad things or something else?
Yeah, the hover. Did you try that at all?
I think the hover quads are permanently in the game. But
I know, but there's a mode now where it's literally it's just like each team has like a ton of them and they just fly around. I'm
admittedly pretty checked out of 2042 these days, and
that's fair. I don't blame you.
I respect the devs for getting the game to a better state, but it's also just not a lot of content. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel it.
It is what it is, man. Well, cool. You got any words of wisdom for our audience?
So I got a great one from Queen Elizabeth. A lovely quote from Queen Elizabeth II.
Now we're talking.
You ready for this one?
Yeah.
It is often the small steps, not the giant leaps, that bring about the most lasting change.
I dig it.
It's good. It's good. I like that.
Yeah. I like Queen Elizabeth, I think she has some good stuff in there. I mean, what else would you do as a queen, right? Is just come up with cool shit to say because you're giving speeches all the time, so you have to come up with a lot of like, you're like, what could I say to really like wow these people? You're like, check this shit out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just throw that one out there.
Boom. That's for you, peasants.
Peasants.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, you can give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to beat the YouTube algorithm, and hit us up on Patreon, where you can watch us live and argue with us about our details about not Jack Reacher, but the other Jack. Yeah, Jack Reacher.
No, Reacher. It's Reacher. You're good.
Jack Reacher, written by Tom Clancy.
No.
And annoy people. Yeah. Anyway, come check us out live. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Bye.